Here I'm with Nancy again, and I want to thank you, Nancy, for today. You're going to share your expertise about buying a HUD home. Everyone wants that deal, right?
That's always the case. A lot of buyers are always looking for the deal, and HUD homes can be a great deal, and it also could be a great home for someone. It could be a good investment. It could be a good owner-occupant home.
Good. So what exactly is a HUD home?
A HUD home is when someone, a homeowner, borrower, had an FHA mortgage,
Okay.
and they did not pay their mortgage according to their mortgage agreement, and then FHA had to foreclose on them. So it goes back to HUD. The property goes back to HUD. So that's how you end up with a HUD home.
Right. So it is not a conventional loan, foreclosure, jumbo loan foreclosure, none of that stuff. It's FHA specifically. Another question that people are asking is, how much do HUD homes cost?
It could be all price ranges up to the FHA limit, and then some if someone contributed on top of their mortgage. So it could be anywhere from $2,000 or to maybe $300,000. So you could actually find a very nice home for $200,000 and some odd thousand that's actually a HUD home.
Yes. And most people have the misconception that when they hear HUD, cheap house in a bad area of the neighborhood. But no, we've seen HUD houses all over the Charlotte region.
Exactly. Beautiful homes.
Yes, beautiful homes. So another one is, will HUD make repairs? Because when you put in an offer, or someone is thinking about buying one, they will ask, well, if they will do these repairs.
Right. That's not the right buyer for that product. HUD does not do any repairs. No repairs. It's sold as is, exactly the way it is. And that comes up in issues when we're having agents that don't have experience selling HUD homes, and they show a HUD home, and you're given a property condition report in the very beginning, so you know that there are some issues maybe pertaining to this home. Maybe the pipes have leaks and they can't turn the water on, or there's electrical issues, so you know the electrical won't be turned on. And then that agent that may not have sold a HUD home before doesn't prepare their buyer to let them know, yes, you can have your home inspected, but we're going to have a home inspection without utilities on, which really doesn't tell you that much. So you need to make sure that you have an agent that has a lot of experience working with these HUD transactions, so that they can prepare you for these situations and scenarios. So even in that scenario, if there's a water leak or there's electrical issue, most of the time HUD is not going to do the repair to get the utilities to be operational.
Right. Because most people, they will visit, they're on the internet, and they will go to the HUD home store or one of the sites to look at HUD houses. And I've heard it countless times. I try to put a bid on this particular property. And I was like, well, you have to have an agent. Yeah. I don't think you have to have an agent. I'm like, it says it on the site that you have to have an agent.
You have to be represented by an agent to purchase a HUD home, correct.
Right, and not just any agent, correct?
The agent has to work for a firm that has a NAID number.
A NAID number.
That's right. So you have to make sure that agent works for or is the owner of a firm that has a NAID number. Right,
and we will see NAID number. You will see it a couple of times as you move through the transaction.
Yes.
It's a very important number. So I mentioned websites. Is that pretty much the only way to find HUD houses?
Well, you can have an agent that assists you in looking for a HUD home. You can find them on MLS. But HUD Home Store, I call it the Bible of HUD, and it's really thorough. And you can look at HUD homes all over the country on this website. So HUDHomestore.com, it tells you everything. It's got question and answer section that's very, very detailed, and it's a very user-friendly website.
Okay. So I'm a buyer, and I'm HUD buyer, potential HUD buyer.
Sure.
And I decide that I want to buy one. Do I just simply make an offer? On it?
I would ask you, if you were my client, I would ask you some questions. Are you going to be an owner-occupant?
Okay.
Or are you going to be an investor? And that will trigger different time periods when you can submit an offer. So HUD wants to give preference to owner-occupants. They want to revitalize the neighborhoods. They want to help owner-occupants get back into these homes. So they give owner-occupants the first opportunity to make an offer on a property that HUD owns in advance of when the investors can do that. So there's always a period of time. Now, if it's a property that has a lot of repair issues, and that may be in excess of $5,000, then HUD calls that an uninsured property. And uninsured means that the first 5 days it's open to owner-occupant offers, and on day 6, investors can come in and make an offer. So then there's another category of homes that HUD is selling, and those are insured, which means that it qualifies for FHA financing. That's all it means. It's kind of a funny terminology, but that's all it means is it qualifies for FHA financing, and that the repairs are probably in less than $5,000 based on the FHA appraiser's determination. There could be additional repairs needed once you do your inspection, but this is what HUD determined when they first put the house on the market. In those properties, there's a 15-day period of time that's exclusive so that buyers can submit their bids without competing with investors. And then on day 16, investors can make an offer. So it's very important to me, as you're my buyer, to find out what your category of buyer are you. Are you an investor or are you an owner-occupant, so I know whether we can submit a bid and whether it matches the property we're looking at.
Okay, so in that particular case, I had someone, I heard a conversation, someone talking about buying a HUD house, and they don't live in the Carolinas. It's not it's a second home.
That wouldn't be owner-occupant.
That wouldn't be owner-occupant. That
right.
would sort of put them in the category of investor.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
So then you'd have to wait until those periods of time open up and then find out if the house is still available on the market.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So does HUD finance a home?
No, never. No, you need to go to a lender, a mortgage broker, lender, and get whether you're going to do conventional financing or renovation financing. There's the 203K FHA program that allows you to do renovation financing, or a 203B, which is a way to escrow up to $5,000 towards repairs after closing. My suggestion is, if you're going to buy a HUD home and there's any indication that there's going to be repair issues, you either talk to your lender about doing a 203B or a 203K, unless you have the money and you can show that you have the money to do the repairs after closing, because you cannot do the repairs before you close on that house.
Right. So they pretty much, they're selling it as is and want it to stay as is if you decide not to buy it.
Right. And conventional financing might have issues with the condition of the property, so you might not qualify for the mortgage because the lender might require you to get those repairs done prior to closing. That can't happen. So that's why I do suggest looking into doing 203B or 203K, depending upon the extent of the repairs that are needed on the property.
Okay. So I see the house, and I finally wised up and said, hey, I'm going to call an agent, and now it's time to do a bid on the property. What happens during the actual bid process?
Well, the property will be listed on HUDHomestore.com, and your agent will go on that website and enter all the information to submit your bid. And if it's during the owner-occupant period, the initial bids that are submitted on the first 10 days of listing the property will not be reviewed until day 11.
Okay.
So then HUD will look at all of the offers that were submitted during that first 10-day period on day 11 and either select one and accept it, or they'll put the house continually on a 24 bid process thereafter and look at bids on a 24-hour time cycle if one of the bids that was submitted during the 10-day period is not acceptable to them.
Right. And you said acceptable, because there's also this big misconception that all HUD homes, you could just buy them as cheap as you want to buy them.
No, they're going for quite close to or over asking price if they're a priced right, good home. I think that you can, if you're really looking for a deal, you might look for properties that HUD owns that they've had in inventory for a long period of time. So if something's been on the market for over 60 days, that's when they might start negotiating a little bit more because they're more anxious to sell the house. But if they're getting multiple offers, then they're not going to take a low bid.
Right, because help me understand that they're not exactly just wanting to just sell the property. They're wanting to make a certain amount on the property.
Well, they're losing money to begin with,
Right.
but they're trying to lose less.
Right.
They're trying to lose less.
They're just like any other seller, right?
Yes, that's right.
Right. As the bid process, let's say that the bid has been accepted, and then what's next?
Then everything has to move very, very quickly.
Right.
The agent has to get up with the buyer and get the contract signed in wet ink and all the documents, including the pre-approval letter and everything that's associated with the package, and get it back to HUD or the listing agent within either a 24 or 48-hour short time frame, depending upon who's managing that property. That's fast. So if you're going to submit a bid, or your agent's submitting a bid on your behalf, and you're heading to Myrtle Beach for the weekend, and your offer is accepted in your Myrtle Beach, you're going to have to drive back in the middle of your vacation, because we only have either 24 or 48 hours to get that contract back to HUD, HUD's agent. So it's a very, very fast turnaround. And they don't accept electronic signature, fax, email, none of that.
They only want blue ink.
Blue ink.
For goodness sakes,
Blue,
right?
wet ink.
Blue,
Exact.
wet ink.
That's right. And then your certified check must be a certified bank check or money order that's either payable to the listing agent or to the attorney that you're going to be using, depending on which asset management company you're using.
Okay. And you mentioned asset managers. What is that?
Well, currently, the way HUD's selling properties in the North and South Carolina area is they have engaged 3 asset management companies. It's kind of like an extra layer to represent HUD in the transaction. So I report as a local listing broker for HUD. I report to those asset management companies and report my information and documentation and submit the offers through them. So they're like the extra layer between HUD and the brokerage companies that represent HUD.
Okay, great. So, and once you were saying that once the bid has been accepted, this window opens and you have to move fast, and get these inspections done.
Yeah, the inspections are tricky. You need to have an agent that knows what they're doing, because they have a very short window where they have to, the buyer actually has to turn the utilities on, and they have to have the HUD's field service manager approve having the utilities turned on. And then you have, I think, only a 3-day time period to get all your inspections done while the utilities are on. And all that has to be coordinated and approved.
Right. And if you don't like it, you don't like the inspection report?
Well, if you're an owner-occupant, you may be able to terminate the contract. There are some instances where they might hold your earnest money. If HUD disclosed something was wrong with the property, and now you want to back out because of that disclosed item, they might not return your earnest money, because they said, we disclosed that the HVAC wasn't working. You can't back out now because the HVAC isn't working. You'd have to find something else.
Right.
If you're an investor, you may forfeit that money, because they expect the investors to be more sophisticated purchasers and do their due diligence before they submit their bid.
Okay. And so we've moved fast through the process, and now it's closing time.
Yes.
And the attorney comes into play, or
Yes,
were they already into play?
Yeah, the attorney's been doing the title work and getting everything ready, and then you're going to make sure you do a final walkthrough with your agent to make sure the house is in its current condition that you anticipated it to be in, and you go ahead and close on it. You make sure that your lender gets their loan package to the attorney 5 days prior to closing. That's tricky. Lenders don't always do that, so you have to get your lender to make sure they do.
So this particular transaction, it's not a walk in the park. Everyone really needs to know what they're doing.
They need to know what they're doing. If they know what they're doing, it is a walk in the park for the buyer. If you don't know what you're doing, you may really risk the chance that the buyer is going to be able to buy the house. I've had situations where new agents representing a buyer in a HUD transaction don't get the contract prepared or signed correctly. And HUD is incredibly particular about that. So if they miss an initial in someone's name, or there's something spelled wrong, or somewhere on the paperwork they didn't initial or sign it, or the wrong person signed it, they will kick it back to the agent and say, you have 24 hours to correct this, otherwise we're going to sell it to the next buyer. And I've seen that happen, and I can tell you agents that don't know what they're doing or don't dot their I's and cross their T's and follow the instructions, risk the scenario where the buyer will lose out on the house that they really want. And that's really tragic.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times there's multiple offers on these homes. And when there's multiple offers, as a buyer, you have an option to make your offer a backup offer. So if the first buyer's package is not submitted properly, and HUD has given you 24 hours to correct it, and you still got it wrong, they're going to kick it back and say, you're out. We're going to go to our next backup offer, and that buyer is going to be one mad buyer.
Right. So everyone needs to know what they're doing. That's the takeaway to this. You know, buying a HUD home, it can be if everyone knows what they're doing and well prepared up front, as we've
And you
said
get the
before.
information. I mean, it's there on HUDHomestore.com.
Mhm.
Our office, Showcase Realty, is available to any of those agents that are out there representing HUD buyers, and we're happy to assist you and answer your questions. We're happy to review your paperwork for you. And we give, and I know our office, when one of the agents that writes an offer on behalf of one of our listings, we give you a very detailed package immediately telling you the process. And if you read it and you follow it, literally like very detailed, then you're going to get it right the first time.
Right. And the good part, you're a great teacher, so you actually do a HUD class free to all agents to come in and really learn the HUD process.
That's right. We have
buyers.
Absolutely, and then we're going to be doing monthly community outreach, so we're going to try to make sure the buyers know how to buy a HUD home.
Good enough, and we will announce that. Make sure that I get the information and to get it out to the public. And I know we're out of time. I know time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, it went good.
But I want to thank you for sharing your expertise, and you'll be back, right?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I appreciate the forum and the opportunity to teach. Thank you for having us.